Talk. This is your community's podcast with conversations about real estate, local happenings, and all things Winchester, Virginia. I'm Mark Francis, a local realtor, broker, and owner at Icon Real Estate.
And I'm Megan Eanes, a local realtor and part of the Icon Real Estate team. Mark and I are so excited to share everything that we love about Winchester, Virginia with you. We want you to be an informed, savvy real estate consumer in today's ever-changing market.
Yep. If you want local knowledge, you've come to the right place. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
Half of me was missing last week. It was sad. I was like a little down because Megan wasn't with me last week. So welcome back.
Oh, well, thank you. I was a little under the weather and my brain was not functioning either.
Yeah, that's part of it. So
you probably did better without me than you would have with me. At least there probably would have been some laughs.
I guess so.
But what did she just say?
Well, but that could be entertaining though too.
I guess that is true. That is very, very true.
There's something about having a sharp mind on the airwaves here of podcast world, or very dull minds will make for either entertainment value, I'm sure. You know.
So did you do anything for St. Patrick's Day?
Kind of. I mean, I might have worn a little bit of green. Nobody pinched me. I didn't have any kind of green beer or Guinness. No, that didn't happen. I did have a FaceTime chat with my wife, Erica, who was in Dublin.
Oh, she's on the trip now?
On St. Patrick's Day. She's just recently returned, but she was literally in Ireland and was sending me pictures of the parade that happens in Dublin for St. Patrick's Day. So I have like 1 degree of separation from having an amazing St. Patrick's Day. So
that's something
does that count?
I think so. She's not going to forget that.
Right.
That is great.
Yeah.
I went to some friend's house for St. Patrick's Day, and somebody that you know, Lowell Taylor, was there.
Yes.
And I didn't know. I mean, he was building the stairs out here, of course, at the Icon office.
A couple weeks ago, you heard like the saw blades going and the nail guns popping. And
that was his company out there. But he came to this party. He's good friends with the friends that we went to visit, and he shows up with a bunch of tables, a tent, a canopy, and he made fresh fried fish. We had fish and chips.
Wow.
And let me tell you, I mean, he can do great work when it comes to construction with houses and with decking. But the food, that man needs a restaurant. It was unbelievably amazing. So
it's neat to find talented people around town.
So he can cook. And my other friend whose house we were at, he had made Guinness stew, and we made Guinness glazed meatballs, which apparently were hit. There were none left. Wow. I did not care for them.
Well, it's an interesting combination. I mean, meatballs are good on their own with a certain kind of sauce. Guinness is good on its own with a certain kind of sauce. But, you know, you put it all together.
If you like Guinness.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. I'm not a big Guinness fan, and it was tart and tangy.
My wife Erica did end up going also to the Guinness plant and had a tour, and it occurred at 10 in the morning for them, which of course
on
the
St.
package.
Patrick's Day?
No, it was a couple days earlier.
Okay.
But of course they give you a little half kind of like shooter shot of Guinness, and she's like, "All right, it's 10:30. When in Ireland, do Ireland things." And then of course her tour then had the next level atmosphere where they took them to the bar afterwards, and they had a full pint as well. Pre-lunch Guinness.
Why not?
And she's not a Guinness person either, but she's like, I had to at least
try.
I mean, you know?
Yes.
So there's something about Ireland, Guinness, whiskey, drinking that is all part of her tour. So
I may have found the best Irish whiskey I've ever had in my entire life, and I actually went and ordered 2 bottles online after having it.
Wow!
My friend was up visiting his son in Boston, where his son goes to school, and he went into this liquor store, I guess, and saw this really cool looking bottle. So he bought it for the bottle. It's called Shanky's Whip, and it tasted like Bailey's without the cream. It was just really just yummy.
I don't know why we're talking about drinking. Well, you brought up St. Patrick's Day,
did,
so
and
then
I guess
therefore
that's synonymous with
that goes hand in hand with drinking. Well, we were talking about like voices on airwaves and voices and how like you could have a loopy person and it could be entertaining, or you could have a very sharp person and that could be very entertaining. We have a very exciting episode today, right? Because we have the voice of Winchester, Virginia on, who was the voice and the co-host of Wink FM for 37 years.
Yes.
An amazing stat, just to have somebody who existed in that kind of a career for that long, had that longevity. None other than Barry Lee is with us today, and we're excited to pick his brain on all things radio, all things Winchester, and get a chance to get to know him a little bit.
Right, get to interview Barry.
That is
turn the tables.
Turn the tables. Which beforehand he was a little nervous about that. He's like, I don't like to talk about myself, but he does amazing. You guys will want to continue to listen to this. Don't end this episode until the very end. He has some amazing tips as well. Mm-hmm. So here is our conversation with the one and only legend of Winchester, Virginia, Barry Lee. Well, we are here with the Winchester celebrity, Barry Lee. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us with Iconic Talk. How are you, Barry?
I'm fine. Thank you, Mark. Megan, thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. It's very surreal.
Yeah, your voice is very recognizable here in town. Mm-hmm. So we're excited to have you. And we want to just get started to learn about who is Barry Lee. One of the more recent episodes you posted, you mentioned Germantown.
Yes.
As an elementary school.
Yeah.
And so I would challenge somebody to go back to Barry's podcast to figure out which one that was where he mentioned that. But give us a little bit of a rundown of how you grew up, how you came to Winchester.
All righty. Well, it started in a log cabin. No, it's born in Washington, D.C., lived in Fairfax when it was a small town till I was 10. My dad was with Eastern Airlines, and they moved his job down to Miami, Florida. So we transplanted down to South Florida, and I was there for 17 years. Wanted to be a teacher, so went to the community college, Miami-Dade Community College for 2 years. Well, went to Hialeah High School. We lived in Hialeah. Community college for 2 years, and then transferred to... Got to plug my Florida Atlantic Owls, who were in the Sweet 16.
Wow, that is big.
That is cool.
That is big time.
Big time.
Yes.
I mean, first time they've ever been there. But so I got my teaching degree there, and then when I graduated, 72, there just weren't that many teaching jobs available. Always thought that radio would be really neat to get into. Loved listening to local radio shows, especially where they were doing voices and comedy and stuff, but you just don't break into radio in Miami, Florida. So when romance broke up down there, I thought, well, I'm going to go back to Virginia. So I moved in with my aunt in Millwood and was there about a week and a half. And there was a little ad in the Winchester Star that said, if you're willing to learn, we'll train you. And it was for WFFV in Middletown. It was located in the Wayside Inn. Got the job. That was February of 77, and became program director, was there for 7 years, and then WINC said, hey, would you like to come do the morning show here? That was in 1984, and I was there until 2021 when I retired.
I'm curious of how you developed that morning show. Because back, you said 84? Is that when you started there?
Mm-hmm. 84 in Winchester.
In Winchester, right.
Wink.
And so what was the morning show then? Because you're basically disc jockey, right? I mean,
playing, it was live
music.
Local. Yeah, there was a lot of music, a lot of news on the half hour, just plugging a lot of local stuff and just having fun.
But radio developed over the years. I mean, with many different personalities that became nationally known. And so...
Oh, yeah, the big time people, that made the big bucks. But local radio, it's still important to, do those birthdays. That's something that satellite services can't do and syndicated shows can't do. And just staying local, being at local events. It was all about being local, chatting with the local folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what really stands out to me. I grew up here, went to school here, and I remember in the 80s, like it was the coolest thing if Barry Lee said your name on the bus on your birthday. So I was like, I get to sit with Barry Lee today. He said my name before.
Did he say your name?
He has said my name. That was like that was the big thing as a kid, like to be able to be on the bus and have Barry Lee say happy birthday to you.
Oh, that makes me feel good. Old, but good.
But how did you stay connected with the town? Like, was the town coming to you? Were you pursuing people? Like, how did you kind of have and build this, almost the culture there at Wink FM for what the morning show became?
I think it was, WINC's been around since 1941, so it already had a strong morning show. When Joe Pasquale left, big shoes to fill there. So it already had a reputation for good news, good local involvement, community involvement. And, basically just stepped in and kept it light, kept it fun. I had great morning partners, Don James and then later Lisa and then Katie. It was but it was always just having a good time and staying local. And I think they become your family. I know it sounds real syrupy, but I always say that I was blessed with an extended family. And maybe you'll never meet them in person or see them, but there's that bond there. When I retired, the emails I got afterwards, just talking about what it meant to be there every morning. There was one that stood out to me that really got to me. This guy said, all the stuff you did, chain of checks, community involvement, but he said, just being there every morning. He said, I was a single dad going through a tough time with my son. And he said, you don't know what it meant, just, whether you shared a little chuckle of some sort or a little joke or just something warm and fuzzy. But he says, it got us through some tough mornings. And he said, now fast forward, he said, my son's an adult that lives, I forget what state. He said, I texted him this morning saying that you were retiring. And he said he cried. And I just like, oh, man, made me cry. But you do build an incredible bond. There was a couple of occasions where somebody would ask me if, they said, my girlfriend's riding to work with me and I want to propose, would you do it on the air for me, And we had a couple of those, attended one of them's wedding.
Wow.
Listeners, I've been to their funerals. They are family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's this, and we experience this with the podcast too. People feel like they know you.
Oh, yeah.
There's this relationship component that happens with a
Absolutely.
voice that comes through the airwaves on any given time. So you almost have to have that sensitivity when you bump into people on the street.
Yeah, they feel like, you're thinking like, I have no idea who this is, but they know you and you just, you know that they're a listener and that you're connected, and so you're happy to talk to them.
I loved how engaging it was, because just listening, even as an adult, I had two of my sons were in the jazz band at Sharando, so it's a 0 period, so they had to be at school at 6:50, 6:40 in the morning. So we were getting up early, riding to school, and we'd always hear was it the Morning Mind Benders?
The Morning Mind Bender. I was just going to say 6:40. Yeah, you were right there.
So we're all in the car, and then of course it gets us talking because we're all trying to guess what the Morning Mind Bender is. And so it's not just people calling in, but it's also the people that are in the cars or at their homes that are listening, that are engaging in conversations between each other's because of it.
Good point, Megan. That's a good point. Yep.
You mentioned chain of checks. Talk us through how that came about. What you helped to build with that program.
Have always had a soft spot for nonprofits. At one point, thought about maybe going into the ministry, but always thought that and was brought up to think of serving others. And so I'd been at WINC for 2 years, and I remember I was out cutting wood one evening and just thought of the idea of, there's that connection with listeners. How about if we have listeners send a Christmas card and we decorate the studio? And it's sort of a tangible connection between them and us. And then I thought, well, take it even further. What if they put a $1 check or $1 in that card, and then we give it to charity? And we chose CCAP for blankets and heating oil, I think. So I got permission, obviously, from the owners of the station, the Lewis family. It's their airwaves. I came up with this idea, and the program director, okay, let's do this. So that first year, we raised $2,800, and then it just kept growing and growing, and it became a tradition. So after 37 campaigns, it evolved into a radiothon. In some of the later years, where people would come by the station or call in, we had volunteers on the phones, and we'd have match days with sponsors, great sponsors throughout the years. And we raised a lot of money and would choose a different charity each year, or charities. And then in 14, we realized that, one of our general managers said, this thing needs to sort of be on its own, because one day, he says, Barry, you're going to die one day. And even though it was your idea and everything, but one day, and who knows, radio station could be sold. This needs to become its own entity. And so we came under the umbrella of the Community Foundation Northern Shenandoah Valley. They became our fiscal agent. And man, what a blessing. We continued to have some radiothons. And then sure enough, the station was sold in 2021.
Right.
And we, thanks to some generous donors and people that had the foresight, we started an endowment. And so Chain of Checks now has an endowment that grows. And it's to the point where we'll probably be able to give away at least one $5,000 grant forever, and then still do fundraising. I still sort of head up a committee. The Community Foundation has a review committee. They do all the applications online. And by the way, that's coming up pretty soon. So nonprofits, check it out at Community Foundation, cfnsv.org.
Good.
And anyway, so they take care of the application process online. They have a review committee that selects the different charities, and they do an incredible job. And so 2 years ago, when we went to a grant process, we gave away 4 $5,000 grants, and this past year we gave away 5 $5,000 grants. So Chain of Checks is alive and well, and to this point, we are over $1.9 million since the beginning.
Oh, that's awesome!
Wow,
yeah, it's pretty incredible.
What typically are the grants going towards? We
told the review committee that we would like to focus on general human needs. So whether it's mental health, physical health, food, housing, things like that, some of the basic human needs. And but there's so many different endowments and funds under the Community Foundation. If you wanted to give to something that supports animals or college scholarships, things like that. So the review committee, we gave them those parameters of, what falls under human needs, and they review it, and they do a great job.
That's great. And it all stays local?
All stays local.
Yeah.
Winchester, Frederick, Clark, and Warren.
That's amazing.
And that started, in 1986? Is that when Chain of Checks started?
Yeah, 86.
And at some point in time, weren't they in the mall at Christmas time?
Yeah. We used to have a match day. And we would go to the mall, and we had sometimes we had a storefront. Other times we had a kiosk, and people would just file into the mall all day or all month, for the longest time. Yeah, the mall was a great partner.
Well, you mentioned, yes, you did retire, but you're not done working, so you retired out of the morning show and Wink FM and all that in 2021.
Yeah, they sold the station to Metro, and they moved the operation to Northern Virginia. I'm not real fond of commuting. My commute was 25 minutes as it was. I live out in the country, and I thought, to add another. No, I said, it's time.
It's time.
I was 71 at the time, so I thought, it's time. And but I always thought podcasting would be sort of a fun thing to go into. You still get the yak, and you still get to stay connected to the community. And I like doing interviews, talking to people. So it's been a good fit. It's worked out well.
So tell us about that podcast. What should people look out for if they don't know?
It's Breakfast with Barry Lee, and you can listen wherever you pick up your podcast, or you can listen right from the website, breakfastwithbarrylee.com. And at first, I thought, what I'll do is make it a 5-minute daily show, sort of like a radio show without commercials and without music. And still doing local stuff, fun little stories, and I love telling stories and building pictures with words. And anyway, sometimes those interviews went a little longer, like when I interviewed my 99-year-old uncle, who was a navigator on a World War II bomber that got hit with flak. And so, that had to share that story and make that one go a little longer. But
go back and look for that one.
It was incredible story of survival. But and then I don't know, sort of got away from beating people over the head with it every day. And so now it's down to once a week, a little bit longer, but still, within the realm of easy to listen to. some fun things, little trivia. I still do. Instead of a mind bender, I called it the brain buster, and we start off each show with that. And you get what you were saying, Megan, is that even though people aren't calling in, the biggest majority are listening in their car or at home and playing along. So I give them 3 choices, so they get to play along. And I hear from people saying, "Oh yeah, when we get home, somebody at the dinner table will bring up the question, and we try to answer it." But the neat thing about the podcast, the way technology is that from my little humble cabin in the woods. I've got listeners in Germany that communicate with me. I got an email from a guy in Japan who used to live in Northern Virginia, listened to the radio show, and he says, "I found your podcast, and I live outside Tokyo." And
That's awesome.
and people in England, but it's just amazing with the technology that anybody in the world can connect.
That's what's made it so great.
Go ahead. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, no, it makes it really cool because the way that technology has changed, that it is on demand. A radio show is live, and you can't really go back.
Exactly.
And so this is something that has evolved, that you have the ability of communicating with many more people almost, because there is this level of they can just pick and choose which episode they want to listen to. The podcast movement, I feel like everybody has one now.
Yeah, they pretty much do, yeah.
But it's a platform that exists that is new, that it's not going to replace radio, but it's just given an alternative for people to catch up on information, to hear from different people, to learn different things. There's so many opportunities of what podcasts can do. So
it's funny. You were just saying that, you start out with just a local podcast, but your Breakfast with Barry Lee is global. It's a global podcast.
It's global. Yeah. We want to get there one day.
You can put that in your tagline.
Yeah. We'll get there eventually. Well, talking about just the evolution of the times, what have you seen over the years that has changed that, is a positive or even a negative in the industry the radio or media industry?
Yeah. Sadly, more and more radio stations are going to syndication, so there's fewer, I think, live morning shows. And I understand. Economic times, especially during the pandemic, it was tough for radio stations. But even before that, you could do what they call voice tracking. So a radio station, maybe they have a market in New York and Louisiana and Texas, and they can take one team of announcers and with the technology and the computer programs and so forth, they can feed them the local announcements, the local weather, the music and everything's already built in. And, that one team of announcers or that one announcer could do a couple of markets. So it cuts down on the job availability, which is sort of sad. But there are still, stations that do good local broadcasts, and so there's always going to be a need. You're not going to get rich unless you become, like the big guys and gals that make it big. But man, you talk about rewarding and fun. But I would say that getting away from that. It's sad that there's fewer live morning shows, not morning, but just live radio.
Live radio,
yeah,
definitely. But if there is somebody out there who's listening to us right now and they're thinking about getting into the industry, what tips do you have? Obviously, they can go to the Winchester Star and look for an ad like you did years ago and say,
I was just looking for a job.
But if there's somebody who wants to get into that world or even the podcasting world, what advice do you have to people?
I would say I would still pursue a degree in communications, maybe throw some marketing in there too, and definitely, and this is where, I know what buttons to push and how to make things work, but as far as how they work or what to do when something goes wrong, I depend upon my wife. She's my IT person.
Wow, that's a good plug right there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, pursuing something in communications, but definitely in the what's the word, digital technology, things like that. Yeah, I would definitely, and I'm sure that that's been incorporated into into the programs.
It's helpful to know a little bit about everything as you get into a career like this.
Yeah, because you're going to be called upon. With fewer and fewer people being employed, radio stations need somebody to do our web page as well as do the midday show, as well as, putting commercials together. When I was the program director at WFFV in Middletown, we started with Warren County High School. We started a student broadcasting club. And so the kids would come over on a Saturday morning to the station. I'd show them how to use the equipment. We used vinyl records back then. They would write up their scripts and so forth. And there were some of those students that went on into broadcasting. And one guy, Roger Smith, went on to become, the head guy at the radio station there at George Mason University.
Oh, wow.
Still there. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
it's more than just having a good voice. It's understanding a little bit about the behind the scenes of how things work, and being able
genuine.
That's
being
important.
Genuine, being real, because I don't have a typical radio voice, not like some of these big booming voices, but I think the fact that if you can poke fun at yourself and just be real and identify with the listeners and just things that they identify with, that you've got a breakfast buddy.
Well, see, you say that, but it's funny because, to me, your voice is radio. Especially to most of the people. I mean, I basically grew up here. I've been in this area since I was in first grade, maybe, and I'm in my late.
Okay, that's
I mean, you can tell by the gray hair. I'm not that young anymore, but just even our generation and just people that know you, that's what radio sounds like. That's the radio station that locally we all listen to because it came in, an hour and a half down the road, down 81. You could get all the way to Northern Virginia listening to it. You could have that station on and you never had to change it. And that was awesome. So it was just, you were radio. Your voice is the radio voice.
But I love the tip, though, being genuine. There's something about the authenticity that comes through.
Being real, and listeners know.
Without even seeing somebody's face and the facial expressions, there's a voice and the inflections that you're able to give, and the genuine component, I think, is valuable. And I think people will catch up on that.
Absolutely.
And they won't listen.
And that's probably also why people feel like they know you. Because when you are genuine and you're having conversations with people, when you've been on the radio or your podcasts, you're talking. And because you're genuine with what you say, people feel like they've gotten to know you.
They do. They do. And it's a neat feeling to sort of be included in the family.
Yep. Well, we like to have our guests answer a couple of what we call iconic questions here. So we're going to put you on the spot. First answer that comes to your mind to these questions. And, you might show your favoritism for a few of these. But the first one, just what do you like about your neighborhood, where you live?
I'm in the woods surrounded by a creek.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I've always, ever since I saw the movie Jeremiah Johnson in 1974, and I thought, if I go back to Virginia one day, I'm going to live in a log cabin by a creek. And you talk about visualizing what you want.
Right.
I used to sit in my office in downtown Miami when I worked in social work, and I would fantasize about a log cabin by a creek, and it came true. And it turns out that that log cabin had been my grandparents' summer home. So
no kidding.
Yeah, it was just meant to be.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Love it. Second question.
All right. What is your favorite local restaurant?
Oh, gosh. We don't eat out a whole lot, but, I would say, this is tough.
So say you don't want to show favoritism. That's the thing.
I know. There's three. Oh, gosh.
You can say three.
Can I say three?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. We do a lot of takeout. Okay. So, Aromas,
yes,
right around the corner.
Oh, yes.
We love their chicken bowls.
Yep.
And my
too.
wife works for Shenandoah University, and so she'll say, "I'm bringing Aromas home," and yes.
Winning. Yep.
And then Italian Touch in Middletown,
yep,
and also there's a Chinese restaurant, Great Wall in Strasbourg. Great Wall Chinese restaurant.
Nice.
Oh, is that the one
Love
over
it.
by the Food Lion?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
I've seen it, I don't know how many times, and I always wondered, so I'll have to try that out.
And they deliver?
No,
they don't deliver.
I'm close enough that I drive down
exactly.
and pick it up. But
those are 3 good options. I don't think we've ever had those answers on
No, we have
Iconic
not.
Talk before. Well done. Those are tough.
Well, they're
tough
close
to think
to
through.
where I live, too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Third question and final one here. What do you think makes the Winchester area so special?
People, without a doubt. I don't know how it happens that, besides the architecture and the history, but somehow people that have a volunteer spirit just seem to be funneled here. Whether they come from other areas, they get involved, and they're just so generous. They have such huge hearts. How does Chain of Checks, how does that just keep giving and giving? It's the people. It's the people that give. They have big, big hearts, and they're so involved with nonprofits. I've had people that have moved here from other cities and say, I've lived in cities that were much bigger than Winchester. I've never seen so many nonprofit organizations and everything. But, we take care of those in need, and that's what I think I'm proudest of here.
Mm-hmm. It is a great town, and I love that answer. You're right. There's something about the town, the location, but it's about the people who live here that make it special. So we love it. Thank you, Barry, for being on
thank you
This
so
was
much.
fun. You made this easy. Thank you.
We do the best we can. We roll out the red carpet for people like you. So thank you so much for coming in. And again, just tell us what we want people to know about you. One final plug. Breakfast with Barry Lee. Where can they find that? Just what else can they do to get in touch with you?
If you just go to the website, breakfastwithbarrylee.com, right at the very top when you go there, it says "Listen Now." You touch that, and it'll take you to that day's podcast, and then they're archived.
Perfect.
Below there.
We'll put it on our links as well, so you can
Thank
find
you.
them on Iconic Talk. Thanks again, Barry.
Thank you both.
Really appreciate it. Well, that was amazing. Thanks to Barry Lee for joining us in our Iconic Talk studios and chatting with us. I learned a lot. What do you think, Megan?
I'm like,
You're speechless.
Yes, it was the coolest thing. To be honest, that's like the closest I've really come. Like, to me, that was meeting a celebrity today. That was just super cool.
He is. There's something about what he didn't elaborate enough about of just the relational component that people feel and have a connection with him, specifically here in town, locally, because, you add it up. That's how many days? 37 years of just being on the airwaves, with those weekday shows, and people have that connection. And
that's just Wink FM. What he said, 7 years prior to that, he was in Middletown. So 44 years on our local airwaves. It's
you
just
learn something from him and that experience. So I think we have a lot to learn of what he's done as well. So
it was a great. I really enjoyed spending the time with him. He really is just a good person. It was a joy talking to him and getting to learn a little bit of history about himself and how he got into the business and kind of how he decided to take the time to retire. But he's not technically out of the business because podcasts are just the modern version of radio.
He
really
keeps going.
So he's got his own podcast now, and I love that what he started with the Chain of Checks, that tradition, just what it's turned into, and what $1.9 million.
It's a lot.
They've been able to raise
from 2,800 to the very first year.
Yeah, to turn around and just give all that back to the community, and with the endowment that's just going to keep giving and giving and giving. That's
you can see his passion for the community, passion for helping other people, and I love his tip of just the relationship component of just you have to care for people. And you can tell he does. And he and I interacted at the Winchester Rescue Mission event a couple months ago, where he was the MC and the host for that. And the Winchester Rescue Mission does great work in town as well. So he's still active in the community, which is great. Knowing that he cares about the community from that sense. So,
and on just a fun note, I did get a new restaurant out of talking to him.
Yes, absolutely.
Down in Strasburg, because with Molly down there at swim practice all the time,
learning stuff.
I'm having to sit and wait, so we'll be able to just go out to dinner while we're waiting on her.
Get your Chinese food. Get your Chinese. There it is. And Aroma Deli. You can't go wrong with that.
It's the best.
Well, tell us what's happening locally for us to promote for this week and weekend.
Now, this is cool because we did talk about this previously.
Yep.
We've got the Harlem Globetrotters.
That's tonight.
Yep, the 2023 World Tour. That's coming out tonight from 6 to 9. Tickets are between $25 and $75 at Shenandoah University. So that's super exciting. There's also a pan-fried oyster dinner. That's on Saturday at 4:30. It's from the Star Tannery Fire and Rescue Department. That's $18 for oysters, $15 for fried chickens, and there's all kinds of different yummy sides.
Sounds amazing.
We've also got the Cottontail Easter Market. That is Saturday from 11 to 4 on the 25th at Jim Barnett Park. There's going to be vendors, free bunny photos, bunny ears, face painting, kids crafting, balloons, animals, all kinds of fun stuff and music. So if you've got little kids, this would probably be a great thing to go to, and especially it's free.
Great.
Also, a Kick Up the Dust cash party and silent auction. That's going to be at the Winchester Moose. It's going to be $50 a ticket, and the tickets can be purchased online to benefit the Laurel Center.
Cool. Well, let's hope the rain holds off.
That would be, yes.
Get the weather to play nice for us this weekend, and we'll see what happens.
Right.
But yeah, this is a great episode to earmark and star for all the rest of our other ones. I love all of our episodes, but today is definitely special. So thanks again to Barry Lee for being on our show. Thanks again for joining us in today's episode of Iconic Talk. We really hoped you learned something from today's episode. Look forward to sharing more with you next week. And next week, by the way, we have another celebrity coming in. I'm excited about it. We're going to be talking all things apple blossom next week. So be on the lookout for a bigwig.
Yes.
Big shot executive kind of director of the Apple Blossom Festival. So when you look for your real estate professional, make sure they're experienced, innovative, personal, dedicated, and available.
And we appreciate you spending some of your valuable time with us. We can be found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. And we'd love it if you would take a moment to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends.
Yep. Thanks to our editor extraordinaire, Simia Battaglia. Until next time, think iconic.